My name's Emma Robbins. I'm a PhD student in the Cancer Screening and Prevention Research Group at Imperial College London. And today I'm going to introduce you to a planned study of ours which aims to understand how we can ensure that people affected by Lynch syndrome get the appropriate surveillance. I'm focusing on surveillance for bowel cancer. I'll begin with a brief introduction, but I'm sure this information is familiar to you. So it is important that people with Lynch syndrome have regular colonoscopies to protect against bowel cancer. Colonoscopy is a test that looks inside the bowel for signs of cancer and polyps. UK guidelines for Lynch syndrome recommend having colonoscopy every 2 years, and this is often referred to as colonoscopy surveillance. Despite having these national guidelines, there is great variation across the UK in how people with Lynch syndrome are cared for, and many are not getting the surveillance they need. So it is greatly important to understand what factors influence whether a person with Lynch syndrome gets appropriate surveillance. So our planned study aims to investigate, among people with Lynch syndrome in England, how many are getting appropriate surveillance, what factors are associated with appropriate surveillance, including patient and healthcare related factors, and what are the most important barriers to getting appropriate surveillance from the patient perspective. A pilot Lynch syndrome registry is being developed by the Cancer Screening and Prevention Research Group, and we refer to it as a pilot registry because we are developing it on a small scale with the aim that in the future it will help to inform the development of a national registry with the NHS. And the pilot registry will recruit people who have Lynch syndrome, are aged over 18 years, living in England and participating in the CAP study being led by Professor Sir John Byrne. And the pilot registry will recruit people from 5 of the CAP3 centres. And we are planning to conduct a study of people in the pilot registry, and it will be a questionnaire-based study. And for our study, we will exclude those who have not consented to be involved in further research, those aged below 25 years, which is the minimum recommended age for surveillance, and those who have had surgery to remove their rectum and all or part of their colon. So we will use data from 3 sources: medical records collected from hospitals, the pilot registry baseline questionnaire, and the surveillance adherence questionnaire. Medical records and the baseline questionnaire, that will be sort of collected as part of the pilot registry, and the baseline questionnaire has already been developed. But the surveillance adherence questionnaire hasn't been developed yet, and we will be developing it specifically for this study. We will use data from medical records to assess attendance at colonoscopy surveillance. We will use data collected from the baseline questionnaire on demographic characteristics and medical history. And the surveillance adherence questionnaire, it will collect data on socio-economic characteristics, on participants' capability, opportunity and motivation to attend surveillance. And this is a model of behaviour, and it relates to the figure shown at the top right, and I'll revisit on this on the next slide. And additionally, the questionnaire will assess what participants think are the most important barriers to getting appropriate surveillance. As I mentioned on the previous slide, the surveillance adherence questionnaire will assess participants' capability, opportunity and motivation to attend surveillance. And these 3 components are all thought to be necessary for behaviour to be performed, and they all can be influenced by different things. So capability might be influenced by one's fitness or knowledge, motivation might be influenced by fears, beliefs, and opportunity relates to external factors, I think this is a very important sort of component, and this includes things like time and social support. And I'll relate this back to colonoscopy surveillance on the next slide. And we're using this model as a framework because it's quite useful, because when we map out the different influences on a behaviour, it helps to identify the barriers that prevent or make it difficult for the behaviour to be performed. And then once we've identified the barriers, we can then design specific interventions aimed at overcoming the barriers. So on this slide, I have mapped out some factors that might be important to assess in the questionnaire, because they might be related to an individual's capability, opportunity and motivation to attend surveillance. We identified these factors by reviewing existing relevant research, but there hasn't been much research on this. So going forward, we will be working with a group of patient and public representatives and experts on Lynch syndrome to decide what will be the most important factors to assess. So it could include things like an individual's fitness to undergo colonoscopy, difficulties in scheduling appointments, coordination of care, the sort of clinicians' awareness of Lynch syndrome and their knowledge of the surveillance recommendations, and also things like assessing past experiences with colonoscopy or fears associated with having a colonoscopy. So we might be included, and then we'll incorporate this into the questionnaire, and this will give an idea of what barriers people with Lynch syndrome are facing with attending colonoscopy surveillance. And we'll develop the questionnaire in several stages, which I'll briefly go through. So I mentioned we reviewed existing relevant research. We'll write the questions, we'll design the layout. We are planning to create two versions, an online version and a paper version. We will pre-test the questionnaire on 3 groups of people, including a group of patient and public representatives, members of our research team, and a group of experts. And this is to ensure that the questionnaire, the questions are clear and appropriate and capture what is important for people affected with Lynch syndrome. We'll then conduct a pilot test of the questionnaire, and this will involve sending the questionnaire to approximately 30 people in the study population. And this is just to understand how well the questionnaire is accepted and works in the study population. And then we'll finalise the questionnaire and send the questionnaire out to eligible people in the mail, and the participants will be able to choose whether they complete the paper version or the online version. So we will work with a group of patient and public representatives throughout the research cycle. At the designing and planning stage, our reps will review the study protocol and study materials. We'll hold a workshop with the reps to develop a list of barriers to getting appropriate surveillance, which will be then included in the questionnaire, and then participants can sort of rank or rate the barriers in terms of importance. And also, at this stage, they'll participate in the pre-test, as I mentioned. Once we have collected the data, we will hold another workshop with the reps in which they'll discuss their interpretations of the results, what are the key findings for them, and check our interpretations and check whether they're appropriate. Our reps will help us to develop a plan to share our results, and hopefully 1 or 2 reps will be able to present with us at meetings or events. And finally, 1 rep will be part of the study steering committee, just to ensure that the patient perspective is incorporated throughout the research cycle. And we have a group of reps, 8 reps, who we've worked with in the early stages of developing the pilot registry. But going forward, and for this study, we are interested in working with additional reps. So thank you very much for listening. These are my acknowledgements. If you would like to find out more about the Lynch syndrome pilot registry, please follow us on Twitter or visit our website, and do get in touch, especially if you're interested in being involved in as being a rep. Feel free to contact me or speak to me sometime later in the day. Thank you.